All right, the presentation will be recorded, and a PDF of this will be emailed to everyone afterwards. As you can see, you are automatically muted, and we request that any question that you have are placed in the chat. Um, and there will be opportunities for you all to kind of share some information or kind of chime in. So please feel free to use that chat, and we'll make sure to have that shared before we will move to the next slide. If necessary, we can unmute you to kind of clarify some questions if you have those. And lastly, we will have a brief poll at the very end of the training. So please take the time to complete that so we can continue to refine these trainings. Next slide. All right, so today we're going to have our training discussing PERMA, led by Deval Clevenger. So Deval has 40 plus years in the human services field. He has managed the family services section at Sandhills and co-owned a successful behavioral health company. He currently oversees clinical operations at Pinnacle Family Services. He's responsible for developing the Pinnacle's fostering solutions treatment model for foster children, and he has trained at many state and national conferences. We work very closely with Pinnacle over here at START. Larry is one of our team leads over here at START. He will also be presenting. He's been with Easter Seals since 2016, and he's been working as a team lead, supervising our wonderful coordinators since 2020. Larry and Deval have worked together to develop this presentation, which they previously shared at our statewide conference. I think that was in 2019, and we're glad to have them presenting this updated training to increase our knowledge about PERMA. So I will turn it over to Deval, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to speak right before Larry starts his slides. Next slide, please. So we at Pinnacle, we do a weekly trauma, Tuesday trauma and resiliency tips. And this week is actually the 79th week that we've done this newsletter, so to speak. It's mailed out across the state to stakeholders. 5,000 plus are mailed out each week. We are going to send this with the PowerPoint after the presentation today. But in kind of celebration of PERMA, our edition this week is on PERMA. And so there's a lot of additional resources and information about PERMA in this newsletter. Next week, week 80, is going to be on suicide prevention. And so when you get this, the link or this newsletter, in the upper left-hand corner, you can subscribe and get this ongoing. So this would be every Tuesday. You don't have to do that, but you'll get this week 79. So that's that. And Larry, you're up.
Excellent. Thank you, Deval. So like our title says, this presentation is focused on the concept of the PERMA model. Some of you may have heard of PERMA before. It is very firmly rooted in the work that START does. It provides a lot of the framework for how we conceptualize the individuals that we serve and how we provide support to them. And PERMA is very firmly rooted in positive psychology. So before we get to PERMA itself, we're going to kind of go into a brief introduction of some of the concepts of positive psychology and what that's about. So positive psychology itself,
I think you might be a little frozen, Larry.
does focus really on those character strengths, less so on character strengths, or more so on character strengths, less so on behaviors. But it really, the kind of one of the taglines for positive psychology, is to kind of move beyond surviving, but to move towards flourishing. So not just getting life, but being able to actually find meaning and enjoyment and fulfillment out of it. The three kind of pillars of positive psychology are positive experiences, individual traits, and institutions. So the experiences that on a day-to-day basis, the traits that we're able to inject into our daily lives and put to use, and then the institutions that we surround ourselves with. So why positive psychology? Before positive psychology came along, several different theories and modalities about in the field of psychology, and positive psychology is pretty different than a lot of them. So why even come up with this concept? I think the biggest thing is that just because there's the absence of depression or sadness or anxiety, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's happy, or that someone's finding happiness in their life. That's kind of an extra, as we know, that's an extra step in that process versus just the lack of not having things that we perceive as negative. Why else? Because thinking about being happy actually makes you happier. The power of positive affirmations is a really excellent example of that. The science tells us that the positive affirmations and other positive thinking actually does have a profound impact on your view of happiness in your life. This concept is also not new. It's been around for even though the field of positive psychology where it is right now is relatively new. This all kind of started back with the work of Abraham Maslow, of Carl Rogers, who kind of pushed forward the humanistic approach. And that approach really was kind of a counterbalance to like your psychoanalysis, like with Freud and Skinner's behaviorism, all that kind of stuff. And Rogers really believed in to fulfill one's potential and achieve the highest level of human beingness. And he would always say that no one else can really know how we perceive ourselves because we are the best experts on ourselves. So that approach in itself really laid a lot of the foundations for positive psych, because positive psych is rooted in individual experience and how each of us individually is able to find happiness. So going back to those character strengths, which positive psychology is rooted in, it's built on that concept. It's kind of viewed as the ingredients for displaying human goodness or for in our individuality. So there are 24 universal character strengths that are identified. One of the big differences between the character strengths and a lot of other models is that these strengths are present in everyone. No matter who you are, you have these 24 character strengths, and some rank higher than others. So the ones that are considered like your primary or top strengths would be called your signature strengths. Those are the ones that are practiced most regularly throughout your daily life, and they help put a person into flow, which is a concept we will get to in a little bit. The science of positive psychology really emphasizes that if we focus on these signature strengths and fostering these strengths, that we're able to more easily promote experiences of happiness, contentment, well-being, self-esteem, all of those. So this is the VIA Institute on Character has this that kind of exemplifies the 24 different character strengths. It has them outlined into 6 different kind of subcategories, being wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. And all the 24 different strengths kind of fit within that framework, within those different subsets. So you can see that there's quite a variety of character strengths. that really touch on a lot of different areas. What's really nice is the VIA Institute does provide a free kind of character strengths test for you for people to take and be able to identify which strengths are their signature strengths, and kind of which subcategories that people fit most easily into. It's something that we do a lot of in our start work. We use the VIA Strength Survey, especially in our therapeutic coaching, quite a bit to really help coaching be able to highlight our individuals' signature strengths in the work that they're doing. So to kind of give an example, so this is both DeVault and I's top 5 and bottom 5 VIA strengths. As you can see, we do have some similarities there. For DeVault, his top 5 are creativity, honesty, love, curiosity, and humor. Mine are spirituality, kindness, honesty, love, and fairness. And then at the bottom, you'll see our bottom 5 there as well. So the really unique thing about the VIA Strengths Survey and positive psychology in general is that, like I said earlier, we have all 24 strengths. Your signature strengths are the ones that you're able to access more easily, and ones that come more naturally to you, and ones that in your daily life you just kind of more are inclined to lean on and use. Whereas your bottom 5 ones, you still possess them. It's just a little more challenging to access, and maybe you don't rely on them as frequently, but they are still present. This is a really big contrast to a lot of other like personality tests and things like that out there. The Myers-Briggs is a very popular and common personality test that's used.
And
So
Larry, if you were working on a team, and we both have teams that we work on, we could have all of our team members do this. And one thing that you and I talked about is that another team member's top 5 may be complementary to the work of the team. So we can use each other's strengths to make our work easier and more purposeful.
Absolutely. And so it not only fosters, gives us an idea of how we can serve the individuals that we work with, but also like DeVault said, in working with each other and how we complement each other. For those familiar with the Myers-Briggs, I rate as an ESFJ. So there are strengths within that, things that an ESFJ does well, but things that are the ESFJ or the Myers-Briggs also points out areas of weakness. So for example, my weaknesses are they label as for all ESFJs are where weaknesses are that they're worried about social status, that they're inflexible, reluctant to innovate or improvise, being too selfless is another one. They're also vulnerable to criticism and often labeled as too needy. If you're looking at that compared to the VIA strengths, you can really see how the framing of your bottom 5 strengths, as they're still strengths, they're just more, they're ones that you don't lean on or use as much, or more difficult to access. That framing is so much different than something like the Myers-Briggs, where it's actually pointing out things that you don't do well, and framing it in that way. So like DeVault said, it is a really positive psychology in general is just an excellent way of framing our individuality and being able to tap into each other's and complement each other's strengths and what we all do best. So again, those signature strengths, when you have the positive psychology frames it as when you have the opportunities to use your signature strengths, like I said before, the chances are higher that you're going to have more positive experiences and therefore be, have more happiness, and your well-being will be improved in your life. Those that use their top strengths more often report being in flow. But again, like what is flow exactly? I know that I've said that a couple of times, and you probably heard it in other presentations as well. So in terms of flow, I want you to kind of ask yourselves, have you ever been and utterly immersed in a task, oblivious to the outside world, just kind of focused on only what you're doing and what's going on in the here and now? You're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about yesterday. You're what you have to do at 4 o'clock that afternoon. You're just focused on what's going on in that moment. Maybe you've been doing something that you love and enjoy, music and sports, art, all of, public speaking, reading, all of those are excellent examples. And then before you know it, time has totally passed you by. So that, if you've experienced that, are that you are in flow. Are there any questions so far, Brittany?
I don't see any in the chat. If anyone has any questions, please make sure you're putting those in there.
Good. So what flow specifically is, though? So we know that if you're very deeply involved in an activity or a task to where you're completely unaffected by the outside world, that you're in flow. But what specifically is it? So the best way to describe it is that flow is the perfect intersection of challenge and skill. So when something is challenging you, but you are also highly skilled at that is kind of that intersection where you're able to achieve flow. So as you can see by the chart here, it kind of outlines what happens when things are kind of out of balance like that. So for example, if things are very challenging, but our skill level is low, that's where we live in anxiety. If our challenge level is low and our skill level is low, that's kind of the opposite of flow. That's kind of apathy. That's probably the best described as just kind of going with, rolling with the punches, just doing, just going with whatever's coming. And you can kind of see how a lot of the individuals that we serve, and also their families and supports, often live in this left side of the chart. It's in terms of, the challenge level is often very high, but their capacity to be able to work on those to work through those challenges is often not there, or it's not as high as it would need to be, or they would like it to be. And flow is really considered a huge part of improving our human experience, basically for its role in living a meaningful life. But if you look at the definition of meaningful, it's an adjective that's focused on having a serious, important, or useful quality or purpose. So again, that really highlights what, if you were to boil down what people are looking for in life, that's pretty close to what most of us would be looking for. An alternative definition for meaningful that I really found interesting is communicating something that is not directly expressed. If I feel that's really parallel to feelings. We feel immeasurable amounts of different things, but a lot of times maybe we're not able to directly express them. That also ties into our individuals who often, our individuals with IDD often have a lot of difficulty at verbally expressing what they're feeling, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So even if people are feeling or know what's meaningful to them, a lot of times they might not be able to express it. And that goes for everybody. If you're in flow, you know how it makes you feel, but you might not be able to actually express that or put it into words. So it is really important for us to be able to, not just for ourselves, but also for the individuals we serve, be able to really take those strengths, because our signature strengths are what is most likely to be able to put us into flow, and to help people engage in those and help ourselves engage in those. And so that way, when we can really help ourselves and our individuals reach that state. So we talked a little bit about positive psychology. We talked about flow. So in the grand scheme of things, why does it even really matter? So just take the moment I want you to try and visualize try and think about a morning that you've woken up, and it was just one of those mornings where you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and just every little thing that could have gone wrong went, and how you felt when you finally got out of that morning. When you were there, were you thinking of, your strengths, or were you flourishing, or were you just happy that you survived it? I know, at least for myself, if I've got a morning where, I wake up and I'm, my toddler has made a mess in his room in the morning, and we've got to be at school at this time, and the dogs are clawing at the door because they're hungry and they want to go to the bathroom, and I've got phone calls going off, and my contact fell out of my eye and broke. Just on those days, I know for sure that I'm not thinking about love, honesty, fairness, spirituality. I'm not thinking of my strengths. I'm just glad that I survived that moment. I may be thinking about spirituality if I'm praying for help just to get through that day. But other than that, I'm not thinking of those things because I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, and that is the furthest thing from my mind. So think about where our individuals and our families are at in their day-to-day experience. What does that look like? Does that, for a lot of the people that we serve, that state of being overwhelmed, of feeling stressed, burnt out, that's their everyday experience. Do they even have the opportunity to not only engage in their strengths, but to even think about that on a daily basis, to think about the things that bring them meaning and accomplishment, the positive relationships that they have, what positive emotions that they might experience in their lives, their opportunities to engage with people. They may not even have the opportunity to think about those things, much less do them. Are our individuals and their families and caregivers, providers, are they able to use their skills, or are they only being challenged? Because they're only being challenged, as we know from the chart, that puts them in anxiety and worry. And like I just described, I mean, how easy do you think it would be to actually engage in flow when someone is overwhelmed, overtaxed, burnt out? It's probably going to be unlikely. I love this picture because it completely epitomizes how I react when I'm overwhelmed. Like, you smile and you get through it. And you try not to show how overwhelmed or stressed you are. And like I said, for many of our individuals, parents, care, and even community systems. I mean, a lot of us work in very challenging systems and situations where individuals are having a really difficult time. And for all of those people, like I said, they're often not in the mindset where they can even start to get into flow, much less to actually achieve it. Are there any questions so far, Brittany?
No questions.
All righty, rolling along. So flow really sets the stage for the work that we do with our individuals, where they hope to be and where we hope to be able to support them in being. When we're in flow, it's not just an inward feeling, but most importantly, it's outward. It impacts our worldview, how we give and receive things, whether that's things that happen in our lives, positive or negative. It influences how we perceive others. If we think about the individuals that we serve, a lot of times it's very easy for people who are overwhelmed or burnt out to focus on what's going wrong in a situation or what is stressful about a situation, because again, they're in survival mode. They're just trying to get through the day. And so a lot of the work that we can do as providers is to support individuals, families, caregivers in being able to perceive the other aspects of our individuals, those that we serve. Because again, it can be, when you're in the thick of trying to survive, it is very difficult to see what is flourishing or the capacity to flourish. Flow also changes our focus from minimizing negativity to growing positivity. It's kind of a short-term versus long-term thing. Part of surviving is minimizing negativity, right? We've got to push this down to the side so that we can just get through this day. Whereas growing positivity is long-term progress, being able to transcend a lot of those difficult situations. It's kind of the difference between avoidance and resiliency. Flow and, as we'll come to discuss later, PERMA, are how we build resiliency and growth for ourselves and the individuals that we serve, rather than situations being stuck or being stagnant. So as providers, how do we help people, the people we serve, families, team members, how do we help them to achieve flow? The individuals identifying and realizing their own strengths. Again, we a lot of times our coaches use, our START coaches use the VIA Strength Survey to help our individuals identify and realize their own strengths. Activities and opportunities that match up with those individual strengths. So again, taking those strengths and then finding ways to actually apply them in the real world throughout their day to give them that opportunity to then engage and achieve flow. Now, in terms of supporting families and team members, helping them to identify and realize the strengths of the individuals. Like I said, when people are in survival mode, it's very hard to look past just getting through the day to day. So a lot of the work that we can do is help families and caregivers be able to also identify and realize those strengths that are present, even amidst whatever else may be going on. And then again, also highlighting and encouraging the family's roles in helping the individual to achieve flow. If the individual is able to achieve flow, that may in itself also allow the family and the caregivers to be able to achieve flow. If only there was an actual model to help us to achieve flow, which is the entire subject of this presentation, not just a 70s haircut, but PERMA. So I'm going to turn that over to DeVault for a bit, and he's going to dive a little bit into PERMA.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So PERMA, you see that the P is positive emotion, E is engagement, R relationship, M, meaning, and A, accomplishments. And so I'm going to cover the first three, and then Larry the last two. So let's move on to positive emotion. And to set the stage for this slide, um, I'm asking you, after I go through a few items, I'll and give some example questions. Um, you can go in chat and give some questions that you may ask a family, a family member, or your consumer um, about trying to assess positive emotion for the family, or an individual family member, or the consumer. Um, and so with the chat, when that time comes, if you will just put P for the first P for PERMA, put P and then the question that you would have, because we'll build on this and move through this. And so we want to keep your questions straight for the actual slide. So positive emotion is more than happiness. Larry already touched on that. And the way that I teach and talk about it is, mostly it's in my good place. When I'm having positive emotions, it's when I'm what I would call the green zone. Um, and so it's when you're feeling good, you're optimistic, you're having pleasure, enjoyment. There's other words that we could use to describe that: amusement, hope, interests, joy, love, compassion, gratitude, and pride. So, and why is it essential to have positive emotion? Well, one thing, it acts as a buffer to the negative things that are happening, not just to our consumers or our families that we work with, but to each of us. You know, we all have negative experiences. And so that helps to buffer and helps each person more quickly bounce back from a negative experience. So it opens the gate for overall PERMA. So it actually opens the gate for the rest of the IRMA in PERMA. Um, and it helps to build resilience, both for our individuals, but also for the families. And that's vital for our individuals that are experience vulnerabilities and sometimes really negative experiences in their lives. So when I'm thinking about positive emotion and I'm thinking about questions, um, a lot of times the questions come about because there's assessments that we have to do. Um, NC START has assessments that are really beneficial. For those of us in the mental health world, we have the person-centered plan um, and a comprehensive clinical assessment. And both of those documents, and all of those documents, actually have prompts for us to ask questions. So I'm going to give some questions that I'm thinking of, but also I want to balance that with questions are great. Uh, but Larry has already pointed out that for a lot of the consumers that we're working with, verbalization is sometimes difficult. So one thing is we have to think of different ways that we may ask the question, or we may ask a family member or other collaterals the question to get a more fuller picture, or um, after we do an assessment, uh, we may need to use our observation skills that will tell us um, the same information um, that somebody was not able to tell us. So some of the questions that I have here for positive emotion, What makes you laugh? What gives you hope? And remember that this could be a consumer or a family member that you're asking this. What do people like about you? What do you like about yourself? What's something that your family takes pride in? What does your family do for fun? And related to that, I'm always interested in families' traditions and their celebrations because most of the time those are fun things for the community, for the family, things that make the family happy or in a good place. Um, and also, a lot of us go into the home, and I always want to look at pictures in the home or ask for um, a scrapbook or a photo album because mostly pictures are in there that people are smiling. And then I want to know what was happening that was good. That's a good indication of positive emotion. And then this idea of gratitude. Um, there's science that tells us that people that um, uh, practice gratitude have a healthier body. It's good for your body to be grateful. So in chat, if you have any kind of questions, um, you may think of a question later, but just put in your response, put a P for the first part of the first letter of PERMA if you think of a question. If not, I'll move on to engagement. Next slide, please. So, oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. We won't go back, but it was going to be a good uh, uh, thing to mention. I also would be interested in what kind of music do you like in the positive emotion, and if somebody said, "Well, I like this song," when I ask the question, it's easy now to take my phone, find that song, and play it. Um, because because then we get to see the person um, really enjoying the song that they said that they like. And when we think of then about engagement, um, when I'm actually stopping and know the song that they like, and I'm playing that, I am in the moment with that person we're present in the moment of them actually experiencing the thing that makes them happy. And so that was a good flow into being one with music. That's somebody said that if you're fully engaged, you're like being one with the music that's going on. And music is a broader than just music. Um, but it's, fulfilling work, interesting hobbies that you are doing that you get in the flow of, like Larry was talking about. And we're most um, able to experience flow when we're using the character strengths that Larry was also talking about. And when we use engagement, we're able to actually achieve some personal growth. So we're growing as an individual. Um, and so when I'm thinking about engagement, um, I, a question that I might have is, what activities do you really love to do? That could be a hobby. With lots of people, I would also break it down to the different parts of a day. Like, what do you like to do in the morning? What do you like to do uh, midday? And that would include, what do you like to eat? Um, um, and because um, one thing that I would like to do in engagement would be that to be present, you need to be understanding all of your senses. And so, for example, when you're eating something that you really love, you are present in the moment and you're really experiencing the love of that food, for example. You would want to ask people about their indoor activities that they like to do, the outdoor activities. Um, and, but the issue would be trying to be present. For example, today, this is midday. Larry, there may be people on the call today that they had one of those mornings that you were talking about, which means that it would be hard to be present during um, act, this presentation. Also, you may be thinking, you already may be thinking about the weekend and not be present as we're doing this presentation. Or you might be having your phone blowing up because work's still going on. You're just on your lunch break right now. So let's move on to um, the next slide, please.
Well, I do want to point out there are quite a few people sharing in the chat about PERMA.
Yep.
And like, so going back to how to assess for a positive emotion, asking about what kinds of routines someone has that helps them to feel good about their day,
Mm-hmm.
asking them about what the best part of their day was or what brings a smile to their face. As far as engagement and looking at to collect data on what highly preferred activities that they have, or asking if there are anything that you notice that their loved one can do happily for a longer period of time to assess for engagement.
Thank you. Uh, let's go. Oh, so thanks, Brittany. So relationship, and when I was thinking about this slide, the really the one thing that's missing is positive relationships. We don't want the negative relationships to take over. And so with this, we're talking about interaction that you're having with others, including a partner, friends, family, bosses, colleagues, children, your community. Um, and what stands out to me is that many times when we're asking about relationships and family relationships, we, um, you know, think about mainly um, the mom, the dad, siblings. But I've had people that would not think about the relationships with grandparents that could be very, very positive, or relationships with a cousin, um, or and I'm in quotes, an adoptive family member, that they're like a family member, but they're no kin to them. Sometimes we forget to deep dive and ask those questions, or it may be somebody in the community. It may be a bus driver. It may be the janitor at the school. But many times I've noticed that we don't um, do a full examination of the positive relationships in the consumer's life or the family's life, that they get stressed out and they need to be loved, supported, and valued as well, because relationships really do matter. Um, and so with positive relationships, I'm also thinking about it really involves the sense of somebody's belonging. Um, and if somebody can say to you, I really get you, that means that they understand you, and that will make that relationship stronger. And even the idea of sharing good news and celebration. So before we were talking about family traditions, but the idea that you we're looking and asking and observing how a consumer and their family celebrates things, draws people closer together. And then if we're thinking about our team that we work with, starting a meeting with a celebration or a good story or inspiring story, that bonds us closer together. And a question that I always like to ask a family member: who would you call in the middle of the night if you were having a crisis? That's a very important question. And even the question of, has anybody been kind to you today? Because that they may be this vague interaction that you had, but you have this sense that they were kind to me. And today, during COVID, we need to take advantage of and notice people being kind to us. And so, Brittany, are there any things in chat related to relationships?
So Eileen also mentioned relationships with animals and how that can
Oh,
also be valuable with your
oh,
relation with your pets.
oh, that's wonderful. Yes, exactly. We need to add that to the slide so we don't forget that. Exactly. And we can go on, Larry, to meaning.
Sounds good. So meaning is the fourth aspect of PERMA. Um, so meaning can, like we talked about the definition of meaningful earlier, in terms of quality of purpose, having some purpose to your life. And PERMA as a whole, but meaning especially, I mean, this is the epitome of being person-centered. I mean, meaning is different for everybody. Um, all the aspects of PERMA are different from everybody, but meaning in particular, there's so many different things that people can find meaningful and meaning to their life. Um, like the definition says, it needs to be valuable and worthwhile, belonging to or serving something, kind of that greater, something greater than yourself. So it's not just doing something for yourself, but it's kind of bringing yourself outward and sharing it with whatever it is, whether it's a cause, whether it's a community, whether it's um, any number of different things, an ideal. Any of those things can bring meaning. So I mean, the kind of going to the questions that we try to ask to acquire meaning, asking individuals and families, what does bring, what does inspire meaning and bring meaning to your life. And there's no, it's the same thing with any of these, there's no right or wrong answer. A lot of times we, as providers, at least I guess, speaking for myself as a provider, like a lot of times we go into situations and cases with our own sense of what is meaningful, and we have to, it's helpful in serving the individual to kind of back off of that personal definition of meaning and be able to really help the individual and the families and the caregivers dive into what is meaningful for them. Again, because and a lot of times we, it's our part of our role, like we talked about earlier, to help people find that. Because a lot of people, again, if you're in survival mode, if you're just trying to get through the day, you're not thinking about these, these aspects of your life a lot of times. You just don't have the capacity to do it because you're just trying to get through the day. So in the chat, if anyone has either a good examples of what is often meaningful to people, or good questions to ask families or individuals in terms of how to find and identify meaning, feel free to put that in there. But as we'll kind of talk about in a minute, meaning is definitely a big part of the fuel for PERMA. And you can definitely find meaning in the other aspects of PERMA. Like you can find meaning in positive emotion. You can find meaning in relationships and what you're engaging in. The last aspect of PERMA is accomplishments. You can sometimes find meaning in accomplishments. But it's still kind of a larger umbrella concept that really, to achieve it, really encompasses all things together. Brittany, are there any questions in the chat?
I see that related to meaning, Maggie said that she appreciated the concept that meaning doesn't always mean you feel happy, but having a meaning can have a lot of nuance and depth that can add to the wellness factor.
Excellent point. I think a lot of time people perceive that in order for something to be meaningful, it has to like bring a sense of happiness. That's an excellent point, Maggie.
And Eileen also mentioned utilizing some sort of values assessment to help get an idea of what is important or valuable to that individual.
Absolutely. Values and ideals and morals, all of those things are very closely tied to how to what people find meaning in. If they're exemplifying if they work to exemplify a particular value or ideal, absolutely bring meaning. Some other things that I think about when it's meaning, like a lot of people find meaning from, like I said, with the engagement aspect with various activities or groups. Religion and spirituality often bring people a sense of meaning. And again, kind of that greater goal, something that is bigger than just what I as an individual am trying to accomplish, but that I'm actually contributing towards some sort of higher purpose or greater goal. And lastly, we have accomplishments. So this is kind of viewed as, it's like not only have you accomplished something, but my bad. Not only have you accomplished something, but it's the achievement, the mastery, or competence in something. Kind of going back to flow, and you'll kind of find that each of these 5 aspects of PERMA do kind of contribute to the concept of flow. But competence is very much so an aspect of flow, because you have to have that high skill level. You need to be competent in what you're doing to be able to achieve that side of flow. And it definitely plays a big part into self-motivation. A lot of, I don't know if people are familiar with the concepts of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic, you're motivated more by external factors, whereas intrinsic is more internal motivation. So that's kind of where accomplishment comes in as well, that not only did you receive some type of external validation or reinforcement for the accomplishments you made, but that internally you have that sense of achievement, personal achievement. And again, accomplishments, just as the rest of the categories, look different for everybody. It could be having ambition for something, setting realistic goals, things that are important to us, sense of pride. So definitely in the chat box, think of some other ways that people can feel accomplished, or even that you yourself have felt accomplished in something. And even feel free to talk about how that kind of empowered you. But it really is a way to accomplishments on their own. Again, there's a theme here that none of these are really kind of all encompassing on their own. They all kind of have to be paired together. Brittany, any aspects of accomplishment in the chat box?
Yeah, so there are some ways to encourage folks to describe a challenge they recently overcame or what is something that they are proud of. Even in the event that someone has a crisis, expressing what they did well during that situation, rather what they didn't do well, and showing accomplishment and how they responded differently to another situation, a difficult situation. And Kathy stated that often a person with ID is not able to identify their strengths or accomplishments, and they often will say they don't know or they don't have any. So asking if anyone else has what have other people complimented them on or they've done well.
Those are both really good points. And again, it goes back to, it goes back to that capacity aspect that we talked about earlier. That a lot of times the individuals and families in the position they're in, they're not able to identify those things. And so really, we're kind of really leaving it to us as, supports and providers to, help them reach that point and be able to identify that. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the highlighting of, even in the midst of something like a crisis or something that on the surface is definitely, is perceived as negative or undesirable, that you are able to, identify things that were accomplished during that thing, strengths that were on display. Again, that's why it's a really good idea to help people get that idea of their strengths. I know I mentioned our coaching department a lot of times, but it's something that they really do well, because since they identify those strengths at the beginning, they're then able to incorporate that to kind of refer back to that as they're going. So even if someone has a really difficult day or, has a crisis, they're kind of able to follow up with, remember, like, one of your top 5 strengths is perseverance. You had that on full display yesterday. So you're really able to refer back to and remind people of the strengths that they have, and how they accomplished utilizing that. So again, we hinted at it a couple of times. PERMA is really cyclical. You need to have all the aspects kind of feed off of each other and really play into the full accomplishment of PERMA. All the elements do need to be in place to achieve long-lasting well-being. Each of the individual aspects, 5 aspects on their own, is very important as a singular aspect, but together they bring the long-lasting well-being that really we wish for, ourselves and the people that we serve. To experience well-being, we have to have positive emotion. Like DeVault mentioned, that's the gateway to the other 4 aspects of PERMA. It's difficult to achieve the other 4 without having a foundation of positive emotion. Going to engagement, knowing and employing your strengths. So being able to engage in things that are, again, easy that come more naturally to you, and that give you a sense of fulfillment. Employing those strengths contributes to well-being. As we know, we're social creatures. So positive relationships. By engaging in things, we are able to build positive relationships with people. Also impacts our well-being. The things that we're engaging in and the relationships we have, we find meaning in those. And then finally, accomplishment, because we find meaning in the things. Once we've identified something that we find meaning in, we're then able to accomplish things within that framework of meaning. It's kind of being able to look back and say, okay, like I did it and I did it well. Look at me go. So all of that contributes to a complete picture of PERMA. PERMA is like a wave, never ending and always flowing. Even if the tide recedes a little bit, like think of how our individuals, the lives our individuals lead. Maybe they have a very, maybe a lot of their engagement is because they have a really good, community support team or a one-to-one that is fantastic with them and really promotes that engagement, that relationship. And then, maybe that person moves on, and then that wave kind of recedes a little bit in that area. but the point is that it's always flowing. So it's always possible to bring the tide back up. I'm going to turn it over to Devalt to talk a little bit more about specifically about PERMA and how it applies to providers.
Thank you, Larry. And just to pick up on you were saying, um, the tide will go out and come back. It makes me think that ongoing, we need to have with our interactions with our consumers and our families, that we have perma chat, so to speak. So we're uh, purposeful and um, it's our intent to use our perma, and I might even have it written down on, you know, on a piece of paper that helps me identify different aspects of perma, to identify new things that we maybe have not known previously about the consumer and the family. One reason that I like this visual, because it has the well-being in the center, and the PERMA is around that, those five things, but there's an addition, and there's something that's called um, PERMA Plus. Sometimes it's um, 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 the new word added would be vitality. Um, and the vitality really, if you can advance the slide, it's vitality would include physical activity, nutrition, sleep, and optimism. Um, and so mostly the rest of the presentation is going to be about one aspect of vitality, which is the physical activity. If you can go to the next slide. So physical activity is any activity that gets your body moving, makes your breathing become quicker, your heartbeat faster, and you can be physically active in lots of different ways. Um, um, you would want to, sorry, had to be physically active with that phone. So you would want to be active every day, but if not, several times a week. And that came from the reference below. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we do within Pinnacle in our foster care program, we promote this in motion for emotion. You can't really see the graphic, but it divides activities into physical activities, and there's a list, team sports, a list, um, individual sports, music, dance, um, earthing or grounding activities, brain gym, and brain gym is a title of a book, but if you Google YouTube and brain gym, there's lots of videos to watch that help kids move to a beat that is actually helping their brain by some cross motion activities. But this list would be, if I were working with a foster parent or parents and a particular child, we would try to indicate things that the child already likes and has done, but also um, trying new things, introducing new things to the mix, so to speak. And so we would probably do this on a schedule, do some things that they are used to doing to get them moving, both inside and outside, but then over time adding to the list of things to see what they may enjoy doing later. Next slide, please. So one thing during the COVID-19 back in March, when we were going virtual. And I wanted to help our staff, and even our staff and their families, but the families that they work with when we do our family centered treatment in the home virtually, then our foster parents, giving them activities to do. So there's two different scavenger hunts listed on this slide. I've sent Larry 20 scavenger hunts, so he has them available. I have 50 plus. Some of those that I've created myself, individualized to um, the five senses, for example. And at the end, there's my email address, there's Larry's email address. You can reach out to him. I'll send him the other scavenger hunts, and or you can reach out to me. But this is a good way to get outside. Mostly, there are indoor scavenger hunts, but uh, get people moving. This could be done for an individual if they can participate safely with the hunt, or with several people, or with a parent or guardian. Next slide, please. So this is my daughter with several kids at a daycare that does works with um, IDD and other kids together. And this was a small group where she did we called it a brainchild activity. It was a movement activity where they were doing with music and moving and related to Africa and animals. And they moved about the room um, um, to sense in, or orient themselves to the space, and it was a grounding activity. Next slide, please. So I don't want to take the time to do the activity. I don't think we have enough time. But this is called a sense in activity. If this we do this with children, we do this with youth, we do this with family members, we do this with adults. Um, some of you all have done this on the call today, and it's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 activity. And so we would, and the idea would be that we're wanting to like reset your brain if something's going on with you. Um, you've had a bad day, or you're getting out of that green zone, for example. Um, so the 5 would be 5 things that you can see, and look around and find those things. You could write those things down and then talk about what those things were. 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and then the way the activity is originally written is 1 thing that you can taste. Sometimes you're not in a place where it's easy to taste something, so you could replace the 1 with 1 thing that you like about yourself, for example. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 activity is, and you could do this with virtual. We've done this where we say go around your environment, not just the room you're in, and five things that you can see, or go and get one of those 5 things and bring it back. Then 4 things that you can touch, and so forth, and then you take time to let the person go get the thing, bring it back, and show all the participants what they found. That's usually fun, and it gets people moving. Next slide, please. So these are resources that we have. and there's two slides for the resources. Actually, uh, I think Brittany's going to send the link, but the link is to that edition of Tuesday Tips, edition 79, PERMA. The link is in there in the resources. So, Brittany, are there any questions in chat that we need to talk about or comments?
I don't see any additional questions. If anyone has anything else they want to add, please add it in now. I see Eileen made a comment on the added vitality piece of PERMA and how that can kind of be combined with, we had a training a few months ago about personalized sensory support. So trying to make sure that giving people those opportunities for movement and nurturing vitality will also be helpful for sensory needs.
And I didn't even cover the importance of sleep and
Mhm.
nutrition, which are as important aspects as well. But given our time frame, I wanted to just focus on the physical part.
And Lynn Beatty asked, where do you find the strengths assessment, and is it also developed for children?
Oh, is that in the resources? I think there's a link to the VIA.
There's a link to the like the book that is accompanied by the VIA, but there's not a link to the VIA itself. So I think we could absolutely
Yeah, we need to put that.
that.
And Lynn, like there is the free version. I don't think there's a children's version of this, but we can check that out. But
Yeah.
but the free version is easy to do.
Mhm.
And then if you want to upgrade to learn more about the 24, there would be a cost, but the free version is adequate for what we were showing you today.
And I think that's
And I know people won't be able to see my printout, but it's nice because it each of the strengths, it does give a like a very easy to understand like definition. So like kindness, for example, is doing favors and good deeds for others, helping them, taking care of them. So it at least gives like kind of a baseline for how to if you were to use this for a younger child, that you would have like some context to be able to kind of explain that with.
Oh, and somebody said that there's one for children 10 to 17. I didn't realize that. That's great.
I didn't realize that either.
So the link for the free version is in the chat box. We will look to potentially, we'll have to look into that one for children as well. But are you guys ready to wrap up? Or do you have anything else that you need to add?
I'm good. Larry, what about you?
I think that about covers it. If anyone else has any comments or questions, we can cover those. Otherwise,
yes. So just thank you for joining us today, everyone. If you can hang on for 1 second to complete our poll at the end. As you can see, there are contact emails for myself and Larry and DeVault. So please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for joining us.